Finish her." The words hit like a bullet. Master Sergeant Dawson pointed at Elena Reyes, surrounded by 12 Marines in the kill house. 28 years old, 5'3", administrative clerk. They called her paper pusher. For 6 weeks, she had taken every insult, every humiliation, every attempt to break her. Now, 12 men closed in paint rounds, loaded ready to end her evaluation in shame. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Elena Reyes had been declared dead 4 years ago. And ghosts don't lose fights. Subscribe now. Follow this story to the end. Comment your city below. Let me see how far this journey reaches. The fabric tore like paper. Corporal Marcus Webb's hands were rough, practiced. He grabbed the collar of Elena Reyes's combat uniform and yanked downward with enough force to send buttons scattering across the concrete. The sound echoed through the morning formation. 80 Marines standing at attention, breath visible in the California fog, watching a woman get stripped of her dignity in front of everyone. "Hold still," Webb grunted. "Just following orders." Elena didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't make a single sound. Master Sergeant Ray Dawson circled behind her, his boots scraping against the parade ground like sandpaper on raw skin. He was 52 years old, built like a refrigerator, with a voice that could strip paint off walls. 24 years in the Marine Corps had taught him exactly how to break people. And he had decided from the moment Elena Reyes arrived at Camp Pendleton 6 weeks ago that she needed breaking. "Gentlemen," Dawson announced to the formation, "what you are witnessing is a uniform inspection. Staff Sergeant Reyes here has been cited for multiple deficiencies over the past month. Torn seams, improper patches, unauthorized modifications." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today we're going to find out just how deep those deficiencies go." Someone in the back row snickered. The sound spread like wildfire whispers coughs, that were really laughs, the shuffling of feet from men who knew they were watching something wrong, but didn't care enough to stop it. Webb pulled harder. The jacket came off completely, leaving Elena in her olive-drab undershirt. Her arms were bare now, pale in the morning light, goosebumps rising from the cold. She was small, 5'3", maybe 120 pounds, soaking wet, and standing there half-dressed in front of 80 men, she looked even smaller. "Sir," Webb said, his voice carrying false professionalism, "I need to check the undershirt for regulation compliance." Dawson nodded. "Proceed." Elena's hands stayed at her sides. Her breathing remained steady. 4 counts in. 4 counts out. 4 counts hold. Repeat. It was a pattern she had learned years ago in a place far from this parade ground under circumstances that would make this moment feel like a vacation. Webb grabbed the back of her shirt and pulled. The fabric ripped from neckline to mid-spine. Cold air rushed against her exposed skin. And then silence. Complete, absolute silence. Because what the torn shirt revealed wasn't skin. It was ink. A massive phoenix covered her entire back. Wings spread from shoulder to shoulder, each feather rendered in stunning detail, flames curling at the tips like they were actually burning. The bird's head was turned slightly, one fierce eye seeming to stare back at anyone who looked. At the center of its chest, small text too far for most to read. At the base of the wings, more text, a series of letters and numbers that meant nothing to most people, but not to everyone. "Holy hell," someone muttered. "That's one serious bird." The laughter started almost immediately. "Did she get that at a comic convention?" A voice from the third row. "Bet it says girl power in the middle." Another voice followed by snorts of amusement. "Looks like one of those wannabe operator tattoos. You know the kind people get when they watch too many action movies." Dawson stepped closer, examining the ink with theatrical interest. His eyes narrowed, but his smile widened. Well. Staff Sergeant Reyes, I have to admit I didn't expect this from a personnel clerk. Elena said nothing. Dawson leaned in, squinting at the small text near the Phoenix's chest. What does it say? Something inspirational, I bet. Live, laugh, love. She believed she could, so she did. More laughter. Louder now. Elena's jaw tightened. Just barely. Just enough for someone watching closely to notice the tendons standing out on her neck. The white of her knuckles, the almost imperceptible shift in her posture from passive to coiled. But Dawson wasn't watching closely. He was too busy playing to his audience. Let this be a lesson, he announced, turning to address the formation. You can ink yourself from head to toe. You can look the part. You can pretend to be something you're not. But in the end, he gestured dismissively at Elena. You're still just a paper pusher playing dress-up. He stepped back, arms crossed, satisfaction radiating from every pore. Get yourself a new shirt, Reyes, and next time try covering that artwork. This is a military installation, not a tattoo convention. He waved his hand. Dismissed. Elena stood motionless for 3 full seconds. The formation began to break apart, men walking past her without making eye contact. Some still laughing, others just uncomfortable. The morning fog swirled around her exposed back, the Phoenix seeming to shimmer in the gray light. Then she moved. Slowly. Deliberately. She bent down, picked up her torn jacket, and walked toward the barracks without looking back. Her spine was straight, her pace measured. Her face completely blank. Behind her, the whispers continued. Can you believe that? Probably got it done on spring break. I bet it's not even finished. Looks like she ran out of money halfway through. But in the back row, 2 men didn't join the laughter. Gunnery Sergeant Tom Bradley was 56 years old, with 31 years in uniform and 3 combat deployments under his belt. He had seen things, done things, and he recognized something that everyone else had missed. The style of that ink, the precision, the way it sat on her skin. That wasn't civilian work, that was military art, the kind done in field hospitals or safe houses by people who understood that sometimes the things you carried on your body were more important than dog tags. The kind that carried meaning. He watched Elena disappear into the barracks, then turned to the man standing next to him. Commander Nathan Cole was Navy SEAL assigned as liaison for this joint training operation. 43 years old, built like a welded steel beam, with eyes that had seen combat in 4 different countries. He was staring at the spot where Elena had stood, his expression unreadable. Something on your mind, Commander? Bradley asked quietly. Cole didn't look away. Her posture. When Webb grabbed her, she didn't flinch, didn't pull away, just stood there like she was used to it. Bradley grunted. Used to what? Pain, control, humiliation as a tool. Cole's jaw tightened. I've only seen that kind of stillness in people who've been through SEER training. Survival evasion, resistance escape. The kind of training reserved for operators who might be captured behind enemy lines. Bradley raised an eyebrow. You think she's something more than a personnel clerk? Cole finally turned to look at him. I think that tattoo isn't a fashion statement, and I think we need to find out what it actually means. Inside the barracks bathroom, Elena stood in front of the cracked mirror. The torn shirt hung in tatters from her shoulders. The Phoenix stared back at her from the reflection wings framed by the flickering fluorescent light. Each feather was perfect. Each flame was precise. And the text at the center, the text that Dawson couldn't read from where he stood, said 2 words. 07 Sigma. Below the wings, a series of numbers and letters that would mean nothing to anyone who hadn't served in certain classified units. PR 07228. Phoenix Rising. Operator designation. Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal coin. The surface was worn smooth from years of handling, the edges soft from being rubbed between fingers during long nights and longer missions. On one side, engraved emblem, a phoenix rising from flames. On the reverse, a serial number and 3 words: silent, lethal, forgotten. She ran her thumb over it, feeling the grooves, remembering the weight of everything it represented. The missions, the losses, the night in Syria when everything went wrong. She placed the coin carefully on the edge of the sink and looked at her reflection. Her face showed no emotion, no anger, no shame, no fear, just a woman breathing. 4 counts in, 4 counts out, 4 counts hold. Repeat. Then for the first time that morning she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone watching pieces fall into place, someone who knew something no one else did. She pulled on a fresh shirt, tucked the coin back into her pocket, and walked out. The mess hall was crowded when Elena arrived for breakfast. She grabbed a tray, loaded it with food, protein, carbohydrates, vegetables, proper nutrition, and found an empty table in the corner. She ate methodically the same way she did everything. 4 bites. Sip of water. 4 bites. Repeat. Around her, the whispers continued. That's her, the one with the bird. I heard Webb said the ink goes all the way down her spine. Someone should ask her what it means. Bet she made up some fake story about being a warrior princess. A tray slammed down across from her. Elena looked up. Lieutenant Derek Foster stood there, grinning. He was 30 years old signals officer, and he had appointed himself the camp's unofficial social coordinator. Translation, he spread gossip faster than a California wildfire. Mind if I sit? He didn't wait for an answer, dropping into the chair across from her. So, that was quite a show this morning. Elena continued eating. Was it? Come on. Foster leaned forward, his eyes bright with barely concealed mockery. You've got to admit that's one hell of a tattoo. Where'd you get it? A shop? Which shop? One that does tattoos? Foster's grin faltered slightly. You're not exactly a chatty person, are you? Elena looked at him directly for the first time. Her eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds, and there was something behind them that made Foster's smile flicker. No, she said simply. I'm not. She went back to eating. Foster sat there for a moment, clearly trying to figure out how to regain control of the conversation. Then he shrugged, stood up, and walked away, but not before pulling out his phone and typing something quickly. Elena didn't need to see the screen to know what it was. A group chat, probably named something clever like Phoenix Failure or Paper Pushers Inc. Within an hour, every detail of this morning would be immortalized in memes and jokes, shared by people who had no idea what they were looking at. That was fine. Let them laugh. Let them mock. Let them think she was exactly what she appeared to be. It was easier that way. Dawson spent the afternoon in his office reviewing personnel files with the satisfaction of a man who had accomplished something important. Elena Reyes's folder sat open on his desk. 28 years old. Commissioned through OCS. Military Occupational Specialty Personnel Administrator. Previous postings: Camp Lejeune Quantico. Current assignment: Administrative Support for Joint Training Operations. 0 combat deployments listed. 0 field operations. 0 anything interesting. Just another paper pusher trying to play soldier. He had seen 100 like her over the years. They showed up, claimed they wanted to make a difference, then spent their entire careers pushing papers and attending meetings. The tattoo was probably the most exciting thing she had ever done. Some drunken decision during leave paid for with her signing bonus meant to make her feel like she was part of something bigger. Pathetic. He closed the file and leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. The problem wasn't Elena herself. The problem was what she represented. A crack in the system. A reminder that standards were slipping, that discipline was eroding, that the core he had dedicated his life to was becoming soft. Better to remove the distraction early. Make an example. Show everyone that weakness would not be tolerated. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Package received. Transfer confirmed. Dawson smiled, deleted the message, and picked up his desk phone. Major Cross, I need a favor. Our administrative clerk needs some field experience. What's on the training schedule tomorrow? There was a pause on the other end. Then, CQB drill, live fire, kill house scenario. Perfect. Add Reyes to the roster. Sir, with respect, she's not qualified for advanced tactical training. The liability alone. Add her to the roster, Major. That's an order. Another pause. Yes, sir. Dawson hung up, still smiling. By this time tomorrow, Elena Reyes would either be crying in the corner of the kill house or requesting an immediate transfer. Either way, his problem would be solved. He had no idea that the call had been recorded, or that the woman in the barracks was listening to every word through equipment that officially didn't exist. Elena sat on her bunk earbuds in a small device in her palm that looked like an ordinary phone, but was anything but. The audio was crystal clear, every word of Dawson's conversation playing directly into her ears. She had been listening for 6 weeks now, recording, documenting, building a pattern. The setup had been Dawson's idea from the beginning. He had requested her specifically buried in paperwork that made it look like random assignment. He had orchestrated every deficiency report, every uniform violation, every incident designed to make her look incompetent. But why? That was the question she had come here to answer. 4 years ago, Elena Reyes had been declared dead, killed in action during a classified operation in Syria. No body recovered. No funeral. Just a name on a wall that most people would never see, and a file marked sealed at the highest levels. The operation had been called Phoenix Rising. Intelligence gathering, covert reconnaissance, direct action when necessary. Her team had been hunting an arms dealer named Viktor Kozlov, a man who made his fortune selling weapons to anyone with cash, including groups that used those weapons to kill American soldiers. They had been close. 48 hours from capturing Kozlov. And then the abort order came. No warning, no explanation. Just a sudden command to evacuate immediately. The extraction went wrong. Air support was pulled without notice. Helicopters were redirected. 3 of her teammates died in the chaos, shot, burned, left behind in a country that would never acknowledge their existence. Elena survived. Barely. She spent 2 months in a classified medical facility healing from wounds that should have killed her, watching her name get added to a memorial for the fallen. But she wasn't fallen. She was furious, and she had spent the last 4 years tracking the source of that abort order, following the money, tracing the connections, eliminating possibilities one by one until only a handful of names remained. Master Sergeant Ray Dawson was one of those names. She had come to Camp Pendleton to confirm what she suspected, that Dawson had been paid to kill her team. that somewhere in his communications, his finances, his network of contacts, there was proof of what he had done. The morning's humiliation wasn't a setback. It was an opportunity. Dawson thought he was breaking her. In reality, he was revealing himself. Every attack, every insult, every attempt to push her out showed how desperate he was to make her disappear. And desperate people made mistakes. She pulled out the challenge coin and rubbed her thumb across its surface. Silent. Lethal. Forgotten. Tomorrow they wanted her in the kill house, advanced tactical training designed to expose her as a fraud. They had no idea what they were walking into. The next morning came gray and cold fog rolling in from the Pacific like a wool blanket draped over the base. Elena reported to the tactical training facility at 0600 exactly as ordered. She had slept 4 hours standard for her and eaten a precise breakfast calculated for optimal performance. Her mind was clear. Her body was ready. The kill house loomed ahead. It was a concrete structure designed to simulate urban combat. Multiple rooms, tight corridors, hidden corners where enemies could lurk. Inside, threat targets would pop up at random, mixed with civilian targets that required split-second judgment. Hit the wrong target, you failed. Hesitate too long, you failed. Make a tactical error, and in the real world, you died. This was not a training exercise for personnel clerks. Staff Sergeant Martinez met her at the entrance, his expression carefully neutral. He was the range officer responsible for safety and evaluation. 40 years old, former infantry, no patience for politics. "Reyes," he said, handing her a gear bag. "Your equipment." She opened it. Rifle old model scratched stock sights visibly misaligned. Tactical vest, 2 sizes too large, hanging off her shoulders like a tarp. Earpiece crackling with static before she even turned it on. Sabotaged. All of it. "Problem?" Martinez asked. Elena looked at him. His eyes flickered just slightly, and she knew. He didn't like this. Didn't approve. But he had his orders. "No problem," she said. "Ready when you are?" Martinez hesitated, then nodded. "Alpha team is waiting inside. You're assigned as rear security. Stay behind them. Don't shoot anyone who isn't a threat, and try not to get in the way. Understood?" She walked toward the building, rifle in hand, oversized vest flapping against her hips. Inside Alpha team was already assembled. 4 men, all experienced, all watching her approach with expressions ranging from pity to outright contempt. Corporal Marcus Webb stood at the front, the same man who had torn her shirt yesterday. He was built like a tank, 6'2", 240 pounds of muscle and ego, and he was grinning. "Well, well," he said. "Look who decided to show up. You ready for some real training, paper pusher?" Elena met his eyes without blinking. "Ready?" Webb's grin widened. "Sure you are." He turned to his team. "All right, listen up. 3 rooms. Clear them fast. Secure the hostages. Eliminate the threats. Simple stuff." He glanced back at Elena. "Just stay behind us and try not to shoot yourself in the foot." "Wouldn't dream of it," Elena said. The buzzer sounded. Alpha team stacked up at the entry point, moving with practiced efficiency. Webb took point Martinez behind him, then Chen and Torres. Elena fell in at the rear rifle, in low, ready breathing, steady. The door breached. They flowed into the first room like water. 2 threat targets popped up on the left, both neutralized in seconds, clean shots, no hesitation. The room was clear. "Move," Webb ordered. They pushed into the second room. This one was larger, more complex. Angles everywhere. Corners that could hide threats. Civilian targets mixed in with hostiles. Martinez went left, Chen went right. Torres covered the center. And then everything went wrong. A hidden threat target popped up behind a partition. Impossible angle, no clear shot without hitting a civilian target. Chen swung his rifle, but he was too far left. Torres started to move, but his line of fire was blocked. Webb cursed. "Hold fire, reposition." But there was no time. The drill was live. The clock was running. 3 seconds to neutralize, or the scenario counted as a failure. Webb's face twisted with frustration. This was supposed to be easy. This was supposed to be a simple demonstration of how Elena couldn't keep up. Instead, they were about to fail. And then Elena moved. Not forward. Not back. Lateral. 2 steps to the right, changing her angle completely, creating a line of fire that nobody else had seen. Her rifle came up smooth. 1 shot. Center, mass. The threat target flipped backward. Chen stared. "How did you—" But Elena was already moving. 3rd room, go. The team followed, stunned into obedience. The 3rd room was chaos. 4 threat targets. 2 civilian targets. Tight angles. Bodies blocking lines of fire. Someone would have to take a risky shot. Webb hesitated. Chen looked uncertain. Torres was out of position. Elena didn't hesitate. She dropped to 1 knee, creating a lower angle that nobody else could match. Fired twice. 2 threat targets down. Then pivoted, found the 3rd target, fired again. Then the 4th. 4 shots. 4 hits. All within the thoracic triangle. The kill zone. The civilian targets stood untouched. The buzzer sounded. Martinez's voice crackled over the intercom. "Clear. Time 44 seconds. Silence. Then Martinez added his voice, strange. Previous record was 49 seconds, held by a force recon instructor. Webb stood frozen in the middle of the room, rifle still raised, mouth hanging open. Chen looked at his weapon, then at Elena. "What the hell?" Elena safed her rifle, ejected the magazine, and turned toward the exit. "Wait!" Webb called out. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Elena paused at the door, looked back. "Practice," she said, and walked out. Behind the observation glass, Gunnery Sergeant Bradley leaned forward in his chair. He had watched the entire drill on the monitors, tracking Elena's movements with the eye of someone who had spent 3 decades evaluating combat performance. What he had just witnessed wasn't luck, wasn't practice, wasn't anything that could be learned in a classroom or a standard training facility. That was muscle memory, the kind built over years of real gunfights, real danger, real life or death decisions made in fractions of a second. He rewound the footage, watched again. The way she moved, pieing corners low, ready carry perfect trigger discipline. The way she compensated for the misaligned sights without ever test firing the rifle. The way she found angles that shouldn't exist and exploited them with mechanical precision. This woman had been in combat. Real combat. The kind that left marks on your soul, even when it didn't leave marks on your body. He pulled out his phone and texted Commander Cole. "You need to see this, now." Cole arrived 10 minutes later. Bradley played the footage without comment. When it finished, Cole asked the technician to rewind to the corner shot. "Freeze frame." He studied the screen. Elena's stance, her posture, the angle of her head. "That's a JSOC technique," he said quietly. "Specifically the way she indexes off the doorframe. That's taught at advanced CQB courses, the kind reserved for people who do hostage rescue for a living." Bradley nodded. "And the shot grouping. Did you see where her rounds landed? Every target hit within a 2-inch circle, at 15 feet, while kneeling, with a rifle that has misaligned sights." "She compensated for the sight issue without test firing," Cole said. which means she knew it was off the moment she picked it up, which means she knows her equipment, really knows it. They stared at the frozen image. Elena's face was calm, focused. Not a trace of adrenaline, not a hint of excitement. Just someone doing a job they had done 1,000 times before. "I'm going to pull her file again," Cole said. "The full file, whatever I can access." "You think there's more?" Cole's jaw tightened. "I think someone went to a lot of trouble to make Elena Reyes look like a nobody. And in my experience, that only happens when there's something worth hiding." Elena walked away from the kill house, her mind already processing the next move. She had revealed too much, shown too much. The shooting demonstration was supposed to be convincing, but not memorable enough to suggest she wasn't completely useless, not enough to raise serious questions. Instead, she had broken a record. Sloppy. Emotional. The moment she saw Webb's smug face, the moment she heard him call her paper pusher, something had shifted. 4 years of anger, of grief, of hunting in the shadows, it had all come rushing up, demanding to be expressed. She had let her mask slip. Now she would have to adjust. She found a quiet spot behind the motor pool, pulled out her phone, and typed a quick message to a number that wasn't in any directory. Cover potentially compromised. Accelerating timeline. Need updated intel on Dawson's network. The response came 30 seconds later. Understood. Package en route. Maintain position. Do not engage until confirmed. Elena deleted both messages and leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. Do not engage. Easy words from someone sitting safely in an office thousands of miles away. They didn't have to stand in formation while men laughed at them. They didn't have to feel Webb's hands tearing at their clothes. They didn't have to look at Dawson's smug face and know that he was responsible for 3 dead friends. Patience. That was what they had taught her. Patience was a weapon. Patience was power. But patience had limits, and Elena Reyes was very close to hers. By evening, word of the CQB drill had spread through the entire camp. In the mess hall, soldiers clustered in groups, voices low and intense. "I heard she beat the record by 5 seconds. That's impossible. She's a personnel clerk. Martinez said he's never seen shooting like that. Not from anyone. So what, she got lucky, had a good day?" "Nobody gets that lucky. That was trained. Professional." The conversations circled and spiraled, speculation breeding more speculation. Some people insisted it was a fluke, a combination of favorable conditions and desperate instinct. Others weren't so sure. At a corner table, Foster sat with his group chat crew, phone out, typing furiously. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "I looked at her file. There's nothing. Basic training. OCS, administrative postings. No advanced weapons courses, no combat deployments, nothing." Briggs, one of Webb's friends, shrugged. "So the file is incomplete. Or she lied on her application." "You don't lie your way into shooting like that. Either you have the training or you don't." "Then maybe she has the training, and someone covered it up." The table went quiet. Foster looked at Briggs. "Why would someone cover up tactical training? That's the kind of thing you brag about, not hide." Briggs had no answer. Across the hall, Elena sat alone, eating her meal with the same methodical precision as always. She could feel the eyes on her, dozens of them, but she didn't look up, didn't acknowledge the attention, just ate. 4 bites. Sip of water. 4 bites. Repeat. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them start asking the questions that Dawson didn't want asked. Every whisper was a crack in the wall. And walls once cracked eventually crumbled. That night in his quarters, Commander Cole sat at his desk, staring at a computer screen filled with classified documents. He had pulled every file he could access on Elena Reyes: personnel records, training certifications, medical history, assignment orders, everything. And none of it made sense. The official record showed exactly what it was supposed to show: a career administrative officer with no remarkable achievements and no combat experience. But the details didn't add up. Her medical records showed 3 separate instances of training injuries requiring extended recovery. But the descriptions were vague, almost deliberately obscure, and the recovery locations were redacted. Her assignment orders showed a gap 4 months in 2019, where she had no listed posting. Just a notation: temporary duty classified. And then there was her emergency contact. A name Cole didn't recognize, followed by a phone number with an area code that didn't exist in any civilian database. He ran the number through military systems. Access denied. He tried again with his SEAL clearance. Access denied. He escalated the request, flagging it as a security concern. And then he waited. 20 minutes later, his phone rang. "Commander Cole, this is Captain Ashford, JSOC Operations. You just flagged a file that's been sealed for 4 years. Care to explain why?" Cole's stomach tightened. "I believe one of the personnel at this facility may have a classified background that wasn't disclosed. I'm trying to determine if she poses a security risk." Silence on the other end. "Then, the individual you're asking about is not a security risk. That's all I can tell you." "Captain, with respect." "Commander." Ashford's voice was sharp. "I'm going to give you some advice. Stop digging. The file is sealed for a reason. The people who sealed it did so at the highest levels. If there's something you need to know, you'll be informed. Until then, leave it alone." The line went dead. Cole sat in the darkness, phone still pressed to his ear. JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, the umbrella organization for Delta Force SEAL Team 6 and other units that officially didn't exist. Elena Reyes wasn't a personnel clerk. She was something else entirely. And whatever she was really doing at Camp Pendleton, it was important enough to warrant protection from the highest levels of the military. Cole put down his phone and made a decision. He wasn't going to stop digging. He was going to be more careful about how he dug. And he was going to make sure that whatever Elena Reyes was hunting, she wasn't hunting alone. In her quarters, Elena lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. The challenge coin sat on the small table beside her, catching the moonlight through the window. Phoenix rising. 07. Sigma. Silent. Lethal. Forgotten. She thought about her team. Rodriguez, who had a daughter he never got to see grow up. Chen, a different Chen than the one on Alpha Team, who had been planning his wedding when the abort order came. Walsh, who had saved her life twice and died 50 feet from the extraction point. 3 names on a wall. 3 friends who deserved justice. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, new opportunities for Dawson to try to break her. She would endure them all. She would document everything. And when she had enough evidence, when the case was airtight, she would burn Dawson's network to the ground. But tonight, she allowed herself one moment of grief, one moment to remember, one moment to feel the weight of everything she carried. Then she closed her eyes, controlled her breathing, and let sleep take her. 4 counts in, 4 counts out, 4 counts hold. Repeat. The scream cut through the morning like a blade. Elena was running before her brain fully registered what was happening. Instinct took over, the kind that had been burned into her nervous system through years of training and combat. She pushed through a crowd of frozen Marines, her smaller frame slipping between bodies that stood paralyzed by shock. Private Danny Ortiz lay on the gravel beneath the obstacle course wall. His left leg was bent at an angle that made Elena's stomach clench. White bone jutted through torn flesh. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading fast, too fast. "Medic!" someone shouted. "Where's the damn medic?" Elena dropped to her knees beside him. Ortiz was 21 years old, barely out of training, and his eyes were wild with pain and terror. His breathing came in sharp, ragged gasps that would lead to hyperventilation within minutes. "Look at me," Elena said. Her voice cut through his panic like a knife through silk. "Ortiz, eyes on me, now!" He found her face, latched onto it like a drowning man grabbing a rope. "Breathe with me. 4 counts in." She demonstrated her chest rising slowly. 4 counts out. "I can't, my leg." "Your leg is going to be fine, but I need you to breathe. 4 counts in." He tried. Failed. Tried again. This time his chest moved with hers. Elena was already reaching for the small kit in her cargo pocket. Combat gauze. SAM splint. Nitrile gloves. Gear she had carried for 5 years through assignments that officially never happened. Lot numbers from 2019. Evidence of a life that was supposed to be over. She snapped the gloves on. "This is going to hurt. But if I don't stabilize this now, you could lose the leg. Do you understand?" Ortiz nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Please, please don't let me lose my leg." "Not going to happen. Keep breathing." She worked fast, packed the wound with gauze, applying pressure to stop the hemorrhaging. Her hands were rock steady. No hesitation. No wasted motion. She had done this before in places far from California, under circumstances that would give these training Marines nightmares. "The human body can lose about 15% of its blood volume before shock sets in," she said, keeping her voice calm, clinical, reassuring. "You're at maybe 8%. You're okay. You're going to be okay." Ortiz clung to her words like they were gospel. She splinted the leg, immobilizing the fracture with movements that were almost mechanical in their precision. Then she pulled out a radio, not the standard-issue training radio, but something smaller, more sophisticated equipment that shouldn't exist in the hands of a personnel clerk. She keyed the mic. Her voice changed. Flat. Cold. Professional. "This is Training Facility Alpha. I need immediate medical evacuation. 1 casualty. Compound fracture left tibia and fibula. Heavy bleeding now controlled. Patient stable but requires surgical intervention within 30 minutes. Grid reference Mike Charlie 4721. LZ is clear. Over." A voice crackled back. "Copy that. Medevac en route. ETA 6 minutes." Elena continued talking to Ortiz, keeping him focused, keeping him breathing, keeping him alive. Around her, Marines stood in stunned silence. They had been trained for combat. They had been trained for emergencies. But none of them had moved. Only her. 6 minutes later, the helicopter appeared over the tree line. Paramedics jumped out before the skids touched ground, rushing toward Ortiz with a stretcher and trauma bags. The lead paramedic, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and capable hands, took one look at Elena's work and froze. "Who did this?" Someone pointed at Elena. The paramedic examined the gauze packing, the splint placement, the way the wound had been stabilized with textbook precision. "This is tactical combat casualty care," she said slowly. "Better than textbook. You just saved his leg, probably his life." Elena stood peeling off the bloody gloves. "He did the hard part. He stayed calm." The paramedic shook her head. "Ma'am, I've been doing this for 18 years. What you just did, that's combat medicine. Where did you train?" Elena didn't answer. She just walked away. Behind her, the crowd parted like water around a stone. The whispers started immediately, but they were different now. Not mocking. Not dismissive. Confused. Uncertain. Maybe even afraid. Gunnery Sergeant Bradley stood at the edge of the crowd watching Elena disappear toward the barracks. He pulled out his phone and texted Cole. Medical emergency. Ortiz down. Reyes performed TCCC. Get over here. Cole arrived 10 minutes later. Bradley filled him in quickly, his voice low. She had her own trauma kit, personal gear. The lot numbers on the packaging are from 2019. She's been carrying that stuff for 5 years. And the medevac call, perfect 9-line report, exact format, the kind of thing you learn by calling in real medevacs under fire. Cole's jaw tightened. She's not even trying to hide anymore. Maybe she doesn't care, or maybe she wants us to know. Why would she want us to know? Bradley didn't have an answer. In his office, Master Sergeant Dawson was watching the same scene through his window. His hands gripped the edge of his desk so hard his knuckles turned white. She was supposed to break, she was supposed to crumble. Instead, she was becoming a hero. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he had hoped never to use. We have a problem. The voice on the other end was calm, cold. What kind of problem? The clerk. She's not what she appears to be. A pause. Then make her disappear. Quickly. I've tried. Try harder, or I'll find someone who can. The line went dead. Dawson stared at his phone. His hands were shaking. 4 years ago, he had taken money to abort an operation. 3 operators had died because of his decision. He had convinced himself it was necessary, the operation was compromised, the intel was bad, pulling out was the right call. Lies. All lies. He had taken the money because he was in debt, because his gambling had spiraled out of control, because a man with a Russian accent had offered him a way out. And now somehow that decision had followed him here. Elena Reyes. The name meant nothing to him, but the tattoo, the phoenix, that meant something. That was the symbol of a unit that was supposed to be dead and buried. If she was Phoenix Rising, if she had somehow survived the extraction that should have killed her, then she was here for one reason. Revenge. That afternoon, Elena was summoned to Major Owen Cross's office. Cross was the administrative officer, thin, balding, the kind of man who lived for paperwork and regulations. He didn't look up when she entered. Staff Sergeant Reyes, I've been asked to conduct a review of your medical certifications. Elena stood at attention. Sir. Cross pulled a file from his desk. According to your records, you have basic first aid training, nothing advanced. Certainly nothing that would qualify you to perform emergency field medicine. He finally looked at her. Yet you just executed a textbook 9-line medevac request and provided TCCC-level care. Care that, according to the surgeon, saved Private Ortiz's leg and possibly his life. Elena said nothing. Cross leaned back. So either our records are incomplete, or you have skills that aren't documented. Which is it? I learned from experience, sir. What experience your file lists you at Camp Lejeune and Quantico. Desk assignments. No field time, no deployments. Where exactly did you gain this experience? Elena met his gaze. Sometimes people learn skills outside official channels, sir. Cross stared at her for a long moment. Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty, maybe fear. I'm going to pretend this conversation never happened, he said finally. But understand something, Staff Sergeant. People are starting to ask questions. And when people ask questions, they tend to find answers, whether you want them to or not. Elena nodded. Understood, sir. She left. Cross watched her go. Then he picked up his phone. Dawson, it's Cross. We need to talk about Reyes. Something's not right. That night, Elena sat in her quarters listening to the recording of Cross's call to Dawson. She's dangerous, Dawson said. More dangerous than we thought. We need to accelerate the timeline. Accelerate how? Tomorrow's field exercise. The extraction drill. I want her on the target team. Cross hesitated. That's a 12-man scenario. She'd be facing an entire squad of Marines. Exactly. Ray, if something happens to her, nothing's going to happen. She's going to fail, spectacularly, publicly, and then no one will believe anything she says about anything. Silence on the line. This feels wrong, Cross said. It feels necessary. Trust me. The call ended. Elena pulled out her challenge coin and rubbed her thumb across its surface. Tomorrow. 12 Marines. An extraction drill designed to destroy her. They had no idea what they were asking for. She typed a quick message to her handler. Dawson accelerating. Extraction drill tomorrow. 12 opponents. Requesting authorization to reveal. The response came 60 seconds later. Negative. Maintain cover. Document everything. Elena stared at the screen. Maintain cover. Easy words from someone who wouldn't be facing 12 Marines in less than 18 hours. She deleted the messages and lay back on her bunk. 4 counts in, 4 counts out, 4 counts hold. Tomorrow she would show them what a ghost could do. The morning briefing was standing room only. Word had spread about the extraction drill and about who would be participating. Marines who normally skipped optional training showed up early jockeying for position in the observation area. They wanted to see the paper pusher finally get what was coming to her. Master Sergeant Dawson stood at the front of the room, pointer in hand, a tactical map displayed on the screen behind him. Today's exercise simulates a hostage extraction scenario. The target team Alpha Squad 12 personnel will be defending a high-value asset inside the training compound. The rescue team will attempt to breach, secure the asset, and extract. He paused, letting his gaze sweep the room. Staff Sergeant Reyes will be joining the rescue team as tactical advisor. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Tactical advisor. A fancy title for cannon fodder. Any questions? Dawson asked. Elena raised her hand. Rules of engagement, sir. Dawson smiled. Standard training protocols. Simunition rounds. No headshots. Play fair and nobody gets hurt. The emphasis on that last word was unmistakable. Elena nodded. Understood, sir. The rescue team assembled outside the compound 30 minutes later. 4 Marines, Corporal Webb, Lance, Corporal Chen, Private Torres, and Sergeant Cole, plus Elena. Webb approached her, his expression unreadable. Look about what happened during the CQB drill. Save it. I'm trying to apologize. Elena looked at him. Really looked. You're trying to clear your conscience before you watch me fail. There's a difference. Webb's jaw tightened. I don't want to see you fail. Then don't get in my way. She walked toward the entry point, leaving Webb staring after her. The compound was a maze of corridors, rooms, and blind corners. Somewhere inside, a role player wearing an orange vest represented the high-value target. 12 Marines stood between the rescue team and their objective. The buzzer sounded. Move, Cole ordered. They entered in stack formation, Cole on point, Webb behind him, then Chen and Torres. Elena brought up the rear rifle in low, ready eyes, scanning everything. The first contact came 30 seconds in. 2 defenders at the end of a corridor. Chen and Torres engaged, paint rounds flying. Both defenders went down. Too easy. Elena's instincts screamed. This was a trap. Wait, she called out. Cole ignored her. Push forward. They're falling back. They moved into the next room. It was larger, more open, and completely wrong. Elena saw it a fraction of a second before it happened. Movement in her peripheral vision. Shadows where there shouldn't be shadows. Ambush. The defenders opened up from 3 directions. Paint rounds filled the air like angry hornets. Torres took 2 hits to the chest, dead. Chen went down with a shot to the back, dead. Webb spun, trying to find cover, but there was nowhere to go. Cole shouted orders that no one could follow. The rescue team was being systematically destroyed. Elena moved. Not back. Not forward. Through. She dropped to one knee, made herself small, found an angle that shouldn't exist, fired twice. 2 defenders down, rolled left, came up firing. 2 more down. Webb was hit paint splatter across his shoulder, but he kept moving, following Elena's lead. She directed him with hand signals, positioning him to cover her advance. She moved like water, like smoke, like something that couldn't be touched. 4 more defenders emerged from a side corridor. Elena dropped the first 2 before they could raise their weapons. Webb got the 3rd. The 4th hesitated just a fraction of a second, and Elena put a round in his chest. 8 down, 4 to go. They pushed deeper into the compound. Elena's breathing was steady. Her movements were precise. Every shot landed exactly where she intended. The final room. The high-value target sat in a chair guarded by the last 4 defenders. They had positioned themselves in a tight formation overlapping fields of fire. Textbook defense. Elena studied the angles for half a second. Then she moved. She went lower than anyone expected, practically sliding across the floor. Her first shot took out the defender on the far left. Her second hit the one on the right. The remaining 2 turned toward her, but Webb was already there, drawing their attention. They fired at him, missing by inches. Elena rose from her slide rifle up and put both of them down with 2 clean shots. Silence. The high-value target stared at her with wide eyes. Holy hell. Elena walked past him, checked the corners, secured the room. Clear, she announced. The buzzer sounded. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then the range officer's voice crackled over the intercom. Exercise complete. Rescue team successful. Time 4 minutes 37 seconds. 8 defenders neutralized by Staff Sergeant Reyes. 2 by Corporal Webb. Webb stood in the middle of the room, paint splattered and breathing hard. He looked at Elena like he was seeing her for the first time. What are you? He whispered. Elena ejected her magazine. Someone you shouldn't have underestimated. She walked out. Behind the observation glass, Commander Cole watched the footage with growing disbelief. Play it again, he said. The technician complied. The screen showed Elena moving through the compound fluid, precise, deadly. Every shot calculated. Every movement purposeful. That's not training, Cole said quietly. That's combat experience. Real combat experience. Bradley nodded. I've seen Rangers who couldn't move like that. Delta guys who couldn't shoot like that. Who is she? I don't know. But I think we need to find out. Fast. Cole pulled out his phone. Made a call. Captain Ashford, it's Cole again. I know you told me to stop digging, but something's happening here, and I think you need to see it for yourself. We're sending footage. A pause on the other end. Then, send it. In his office, Dawson watched the same footage. His face was pale. His hands trembled. 12 Marines. She had walked through them like they weren't even there. This wasn't a personnel clerk. This wasn't some desk jockey with a fancy tattoo. This was a weapon, and she was pointed directly at him. He picked up his phone, dialed the same number as before. The drill failed. I saw. What do we do? A long pause. Nothing. For now. Nothing, I said nothing. We wait, we watch, and when the time is right, we eliminate the problem permanently. How? Leave that to me. Your job is to keep her contained, keep her visible. Don't let her disappear. And if she starts talking, if she tells someone what she knows. A cold laugh. Who would believe her? She's a paper pusher with a bird tattoo. Anything she says will sound like fantasy." The line went dead. Dawson set down his phone. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to feel hope. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe the shadow over his head would pass. Maybe Elena Reyes would fade away, just another name forgotten by history. He had no way of knowing that Elena was in the next room listening to every word through a device planted in his wall 3 weeks ago. She had what she needed now. The phone number. The voice on the other end. The network that had killed her team. All that remained was the proof, and she was very, very close to getting it. That night, Elena sat in her quarters reviewing the recordings from the past 6 weeks. Hundreds of hours of audio, dozens of documents photographed through windows and reconstructed from trash, financial records obtained through channels that officially didn't exist. The picture was becoming clear. Dawson was just a node, a small piece of a larger machine. The money that had paid for the Phoenix Rising abort had come from a network that stretched across 3 continents, arms dealers, corrupt officials, people who profited from war and chaos. Viktor Kozlov was at the center, the same man her team had been hunting when the abort order came, the same man who had paid to have them killed. He was still out there, still operating, still untouchable. But not for much longer. Elena pulled out her challenge coin, rubbed her thumb across its surface. Silent, lethal, forgotten. Not forgotten anymore. She typed a message to her handler. Network identified. Dawson connected to Kozlov, requesting authorization for Phase 2. The response came 3 minutes later. Authorization granted. Proceed with caution. Backup en route. Elena read the message twice. Then she deleted it, lay back on her bunk, and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, she allowed herself one moment of anticipation. One moment of knowing that justice was finally within reach. Rodriguez. Chen. Walsh. Soon she would make it right. 4 counts in. 4 counts out. 4 counts hold. Repeat. The encrypted message arrived at 0347. Elena's eyes snapped open before the second vibration. Years of operating in hostile territory had trained her body to wake fully instantly without the fog that plagued normal sleepers. She reached for the device under her pillow and read the text in the darkness. Kozlov network compromised. Dawson making move tonight. Extraction team neutralized. You are alone. Abort recommended. Elena stared at the screen. Her handler was telling her to run, to abandon 6 weeks of work, 4 years of hunting 3 dead friends who deserved justice. She typed her response. Negative. Proceeding. The reply came immediately. You will die. Elena deleted the conversation and swung her legs off the bunk. Her hands moved automatically, checking the pistol taped under her mattress, the knife strapped to her ankle, the challenge coin in her pocket. Old habits. Survival habits. If Dawson was moving tonight, it meant he knew. Someone had tipped him off. Someone had told him that the woman he'd been trying to destroy was actually the hunter, not the prey. The question was, who she pulled on her boots and slipped out of her quarters into the darkness. The base was quiet at this hour, just the distant hum of generators and the occasional footstep of a patrolling guard. Elena moved through the shadows like she belonged to them, her footfalls silent, her breathing controlled. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. She needed to reach Dawson's office. The evidence she'd gathered was good, but it wasn't enough. She needed the original, the file he kept in his safe, the one that contained the names of everyone in the network. Without that, Kozlov would disappear, and 3 more years of hunting would begin. She was halfway across the parade ground when she heard them. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving with purpose. Elena froze, pressing herself against the wall of the nearest building. 4 figures emerged from between the barracks, dressed in civilian clothes, moving in tactical formation. Not Marines. These were professionals. Kozlov's men. They were heading toward her quarters. Elena's mind raced. If they found her bunk empty, they would know she was aware. They would hunt her. And on a military base with no backup, no extraction, she would eventually be cornered. Unless she cornered them first. She moved. Fast and silent, circling behind them, closing the distance. The nearest man was tall, broad-shouldered, walking with the confidence of someone who had killed before. He never heard her coming. Elena's arm wrapped around his throat. She squeezed not enough to kill, just enough to cut off blood to the brain. He struggled for 3 seconds, then went limp. She lowered him to the ground and kept moving. The second man turned at exactly the wrong moment. His eyes widened as he saw his partner on the ground, but before he could shout, Elena was on him. A palm strike to the throat silenced his voice. A knee to the groin doubled him over. An elbow to the temple put him down. 2 left. They had heard something now. They stopped, hands moving toward concealed weapons heads, swiveling. "Yuri," one whispered in accented English. Yuri responded. Elena picked up a stone from the ground and threw it against a nearby wall. The sound drew their attention for half a second. Half a second was all she needed. She hit the third man from behind a chokehold that dropped him in 4 seconds. The fourth spun gun coming up, but Elena was already inside his reach. She grabbed his wrist, twisted, heard something crack. His scream was cut short by her forearm across his windpipe. 4 men down. 20 seconds total. Elena stood over them, breathing slightly elevated, but controlled. These weren't amateurs. These were trained operatives, probably former military, definitely expensive. Kozlov was scared. Scared enough to send his best people. Good. She zip-tied their hands and feet with restraints from her pocket, then pulled out her phone and photographed each face. Evidence. More evidence for the file that would burn the entire network. Then she ran. Dawson's office was on the other side of the base. She covered the distance in 4 minutes, staying in shadows, avoiding the main paths. The building was dark, except for a single light on the 2nd floor. He was still awake. Elena circled to the back entrance, found the door unlocked. Careless or intentional, and slipped inside. The stairs were old, prone to creaking, so she moved along the edges where the wood was most stable. The light came from under Dawson's door. She could hear his voice muffled, but agitated. "They should have reported by now. Something's wrong." A pause. He was on the phone. "I don't care about your excuses. I paid for professionals. If they failed..." Elena pushed the door open. Dawson's spun phone still pressed to his ear, face going white. "You," he breathed. "Me." He dropped the phone hand, diving toward his desk drawer. Elena crossed the room in 3 steps, caught his wrist, and slammed it against the desk. Something metal clattered inside the drawer, a pistol he would never reach. "Don't," she said quietly. Dawson's eyes were wild. "Who are you? Who the hell are you? You know who I am. You've known since the moment I arrived." "That's impossible. You're dead. I saw the report. I signed off on..." He stopped, realized what he'd said. Elena smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "You signed off on my death." "Yes. You signed off on Rodriguez's death, on Chen's death, on Walsh's death. 3 operators who trusted the chain of command, who followed orders, who died because someone sold their location for $200,000. Dawson's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to. Wasn't supposed to what kill us? Is that what you told yourself? That the abort order would just delay the mission, that we'd get another chance? The operation was compromised. Intelligence indicated. Intelligence indicated nothing. Elena's voice was ice. I've seen the files. There was no compromise, no leak. The only person who betrayed that mission was you. Tears were streaming down Dawson's face now. You don't understand? I was in trouble. Gambling debts. They threatened my family. They said if I didn't cooperate, so you chose your family over mine. I didn't know people would die. You knew exactly what would happen. Elena released his wrist and stepped back. Open the safe. What? The safe behind the painting. The one with the names. Open it. Dawson hesitated. If I do that, I'm a dead man. You're already a dead man. Dead. The only question is whether you die as a traitor or as someone who helped bring down the people who made you one. A long moment passed. Then Dawson moved to the wall, removed a small painting, and punched a code into the hidden safe. The door swung open. Inside were stacks of documents, USB drives, and a thick folder marked with a single word, network. Elena grabbed it, flipped through the pages. Names, dates, amounts, operations, everything. 4 years of hunting. And here it was, the key to destroying Kozlov and everyone who worked for him. This is enough to put away 100 people, she said, including me. Yes, including you. Dawson slumped into his chair. He looked broken, defeated. What happens now? Before Elena could answer, the window exploded. Glass showered across the room. Elena dropped instinctively, pulling Dawson down with her. Gunfire ripped through the air. Not simunition, real rounds punching holes in the walls and furniture. Someone was shooting at them. Someone with a high-powered rifle. Stay down, Elena shouted. She crawled toward the door, dragging the folder with her. More shots came, systematic, professional, tracking their movement. Whoever was out there knew what they were doing. The back stairs, Dawson gasped. There's a fire exit. Move, now! They ran. Elena kept her body between Dawson and the windows, taking the angles that offered the most cover. Behind them, more glass shattered. The shooter was adjusting, trying to anticipate their path. They hit the fire exit and tumbled out into the night. Elena grabbed Dawson's arm and pulled him toward the motor pool. Where are we going? He demanded. Somewhere they can't follow. A bullet sparked off the concrete 3 feet from her head. The shooter had repositioned faster than she'd expected. These weren't just Kozlov's men anymore. This was someone with military training, someone who knew the base, someone inside. You have a mole, Elena said as they ran. Someone feeding them information. That's impossible. I'm the only one who... Dawson stopped. His face went pale. Cross, Major Cross. He's been with me from the beginning. Elena filed that information away. Another name for the list. They reached the motor pool. Elena found an unlocked Humvee, hot-wired it in 30 seconds, and threw Dawson into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life. Where are we going? Dawson asked again. Commander Cole's quarters. He's the only person on this base I trust. How do you know you can trust him? Elena pulled out of the motor pool tires, screaming. Because I saved his life once. And people don't forget that. Cole was awake when they arrived. He met them at the door, pistol drawn, eyes sharp, despite the hour. He took in the scene, Elena covered in glass fragments, Dawson shaking and pale, the folder clutched in her hands, and made a decision in less than a second. Inside, now. They moved into his quarters. Cole locked the door, checked the windows, then turned to face them. Someone want to tell me what the hell is happening? Elena handed him the folder. Master Sergeant Dawson has been working for an arms dealer named Viktor Kozlov. 4 years ago, he took money to abort an operation that resulted in the deaths of 3 covert operators. I was one of them. I survived. Now I'm here to bring down the network. Cole stared at her, then at Dawson, then back at her. You're Phoenix Rising? Yes. You've been undercover this entire time? Yes. Cole let out a long breath. I knew something was wrong. I knew it. The way you moved, the way you shot. He shook his head. Why didn't you come to me? Because I didn't know who to trust. Kozlov has people everywhere. Military intelligence, law enforcement. Anyone could be compromised. And Dawson... Elena looked at the man who had destroyed her team. He was sitting on Cole's couch head in his hands, shoulders shaking. He's cooperating now. He'll testify. And if he doesn't, then he dies, along with everyone else in that folder. Cole opened the folder, scanned the first few pages. His face darkened with each name he read. There are generals in here, senators, CEOs. Kozlov doesn't think small. This will destroy careers, maybe bring down governments. That's the point. Cole closed the folder. What do you need from me? Back up. Someone I can trust to watch my six while I finish this. Finish what? Elena's eyes were cold. Hard. Kozlov is on a yacht in international waters 60 miles off the coast. He thinks he's safe there. He's wrong. You're going after him personally. I'm going to end him. Cole studied her for a long moment. You know this could be a suicide mission. I know. And you're going anyway. 3 of my friends died because of that man. I'm not going to rest until he joins them. Cole nodded slowly. Then I'm coming with you. Elena shook her head. This isn't your fight. You saved my life in Fallujah. I spent years wondering who you were, why you did it, whether I'd ever get the chance to repay you. He met her eyes. This is that chance. Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We know where you are. Surrender the file and Dawson lives. Refuse and everyone dies. She showed Cole the screen. They're tracking us. Then we move, now. They grabbed Dawson and headed for the door. But as Cole reached for the handle, it exploded inward. 2 men burst through, weapons raised. Cole fired twice, dropping the first. Elena tackled the second, driving him to the ground, her knife appearing in her hand from nowhere. The blade found his throat before he could scream. More footsteps outside, more coming. Back door, Cole ordered. They ran through the quarters, Dawson stumbling between them. Elena could hear voices shouting, engines starting, the base coming alive with chaos. They emerged into an alley between buildings. 3 more figures appeared at the far end, silhouettes against the distant lights. Elena raised her pistol. Get Dawson to the airfield. There's a helicopter on standby. I'm not leaving you. You're not. You're completing the mission. She pressed the folder into his hands. This is everything. The names, the money, the operations. Get it to JSOC. Burn them all. Elena, go! Cole grabbed Dawson and ran. Elena turned to face the approaching figures. 3 against 1. Bad odds for most people. She wasn't most people. The first man was fast military training, probably special forces. He came in with a knife, slashing at her midsection. Elena sidestepped, caught his arm, and redirected his momentum into the wall. His head hit brick with a sickening crack. The second man had learned from his partner's mistake. He stayed back, circling, waiting for an opening. Elena gave him one, a deliberate gap in her defense. He took the bait, lunging forward. She dropped under his swing, drove her elbow into his knee, heard cartilage tear. As he went down, she brought her forearm across his throat and squeezed. The third man was smarter. He didn't rush in. He pulled a gun. Elena moved the moment she saw his hand go to his holster. She grabbed the second man, still conscious, still screaming, and used him as a shield. The shot went wide, and before the third man could adjust, Elena had closed the distance. A palm strike to the nose. Blood everywhere. A knee to the solar plexus. He doubled over. A final elbow to the temple. Silence. Elena stood alone in the alley, surrounded by bodies breathing hard. Her hands were shaking not from fear, but from adrenaline from the release of 4 years of hunting, from the knowledge that this was almost over. She pulled out her phone, typed a message to Cole. Status. The response came 30 seconds later. Airborne. Dawson secure. File en route to JSOC. Where are you? Elena looked at the sky. Somewhere out there, 60 miles off the coast, Viktor Kozlov was waiting. On my way to finish this. She found a vehicle, hot-wired it, and drove toward the coast. The night was far from over. The ocean swallowed the sound of Elena's approach. She cut the engine of the stolen speedboat 200 meters from Kozlov's yacht and let momentum carry her through the darkness. The vessel ahead was massive, a floating fortress that cost more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes. Lights glittered along its deck, and she could see shadows moving behind tinted windows. Kozlov was hosting a party. Celebrating, probably. Confident that his problems were being handled back on shore. He had no idea those problems were about to board his boat. Elena checked her equipment one final time. Pistol with 2 spare magazines, knife strapped to her thigh, waterproof pouch containing her phone, and a single USB drive, a copy of the evidence insurance in case Cole's transmission failed. And her challenge coin pressed against her chest close to her heart. Rodriguez. Chinto. Walsh. She whispered their names like a prayer. Then she slipped over the side and into the water. The swim took 8 minutes. Elena moved silently, using a combat side stroke that kept her profile low and her splashing minimal. The water was cold, 58 degrees, maybe less, but she had trained in worse. Much worse. She reached the yacht's stern and found the maintenance ladder exactly where the surveillance photos had shown it. Hand over hand, she climbed water, dripping from her clothes, muscles burning with controlled exertion. The deck was empty when she pulled herself over the rail. Everyone was inside enjoying Kozlov's hospitality. Elena crouched in the shadows, letting her eyes adjust, listening to the rhythm of the vessel. Music from somewhere deep in the ship. Laughter. The clink of glasses. And voices. 2 men approaching from the port side. Elena pressed herself against the wall. Said the team missed their check-in, one man was saying in accented English. Viktor is concerned. Viktor is always concerned. The Americans are incompetent. The girl probably ran back to whatever hole she crawled from. She killed 4 of our best men. That is not incompetent. She got lucky. Yuri does not believe in luck. He believes she is Phoenix rising. A pause. That unit was destroyed years ago. Apparently not. Their footsteps grew louder. Elena counted the seconds, 3, 2, 1. She moved. The first man never saw her. She caught him from behind, one arm around his throat, the other controlling his weapon hand. A quick twist, and he went limp. The second man spun, reaching for his gun. Elena was faster. She closed the distance in 2 steps, drove her palm into his nose, then grabbed the back of his head and slammed his face into the railing. He crumpled without a sound. 2 down. Unknown number remaining. Elena stripped the first man of his radio and earpiece, then dragged both bodies behind a maintenance locker. She activated the radio, listening to the chatter. Post 7 report. Silence. Post 7 respond. More silence. All units, we may have a breach. Secure the principal and sweep the deck. Elena smiled grimly. They knew she was here. Good. Let them come. She moved deeper into the yacht, following the layout she had memorized from satellite imagery and stolen blueprints. Kozlov would be in the main cabin, the most protected space on the vessel, surrounded by his most trusted guards. Getting to him would require going through all of them. The first guard appeared at the end of a corridor. He was big, 6'4", easily 250 pounds, and he moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. Elena let him see her. His eyes widened. He reached for his weapon. Too slow. She closed the distance before his hand touched the holster. A knee to the groin doubled him over. An elbow to the back of the neck dropped him. A final strike to the temple ensured he stayed down. Shouts behind her now, running footsteps. They were converging on her position. Elena ran. She burst through a door and found herself in a service corridor, narrow, cramped, lined with pipes and electrical conduits. Perfect for someone her size. Terrible for the larger men pursuing her. She heard them enter behind her, cursing as they struggled to fit through the tight space. She went this way. I can't, goddammit, I'm stuck. Elena kept moving. The corridor opened into a larger space, a kitchen, stainless steel surfaces gleaming under harsh lights. A cook looked up from his work, startled. Get down, Elena ordered. He dropped behind a counter without argument. 3 guards burst through the far door. Elena grabbed a pot from the stove, heavy cast iron full of boiling water, and threw it. The first guard caught it full in the face. His screams filled the kitchen. The second guard fired. Elena was already moving, rolling behind a prep table, coming up with a knife from the magnetic strip on the wall. She threw it without hesitation. It buried itself in the guard's shoulder, spinning him around. The third guard was smarter. He took cover behind a refrigerator, firing blind, keeping Elena pinned. You can't win, he shouted. There are 20 more of us. You're alone. I know, Elena called back. That's why I brought friends. She pulled out her phone and pressed a button. Somewhere in the bowels of the yacht, an explosion rocked the vessel. The lights flickered. Alarms began to wail. Elena had planted charges on the engine room during her approach, small devices designed to disable rather than destroy. The yacht wasn't sinking, but it wasn't going anywhere either. The third guard broke cover, disoriented by the blast. Elena was on him in an instant. A punch to the throat, a knee to the face. He went down hard. She grabbed his radio. Kozlov, I'm coming for you. You can surrender, or you can watch everyone on this boat die. Your choice. Static. Then a voice, calm, cultured with a hint of Eastern European accent. Miss Reyes, or should I say Phoenix Rising 7, I was wondering when you would arrive. Elena's blood ran cold. He knew her name. Her real name. You seem surprised, Kozlov continued. Did you think I didn't know who was hunting me? I've known for years. Since Syria. Since you survived what should have killed you. Then you know why I'm here. Revenge. Such a simple motivation. Such a waste of talent. A pause. I have a proposal. Come to the main cabin. Alone, unarmed. Let us talk like civilized people. Why would I do that? Because I have something you want. Something more valuable than my death. There's nothing more valuable than watching you stop breathing. Not even the truth about Phoenix Rising, about why your team really died. Elena's hand tightened on the radio. I know why they died. You paid Dawson to abort the operation. Dawson was a tool, a pawn. He followed orders just like you did. The question is, whose orders? Silence. Come to the cabin, Miss Reyes. Learn the truth. Then decide if you still want to kill me. The radio went dead. Elena stood in the ruined kitchen, mind racing. Kozlov was playing games, that was obvious. He was trying to manipulate her to buy time to find an angle. But what if he wasn't lying? What if there was more to the Phoenix Rising abort than she knew? She had spent 4 years building a case against Kozlov and his network. 4 years convinced that he was the architect of everything that had gone wrong. What if she was wrong? There was only one way to find out. She moved through the yacht, following the path to the main cabin. Guards appeared intermittently. Some she fought, some she avoided, all of them increasingly desperate, as the ship listed and the alarms continued to scream. The cabin door was unlocked. Elena pushed it open and stepped inside. Viktor Kozlov sat behind a massive mahogany desk, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was older than she expected, 60, maybe 65, with silver hair and pale blue eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore a tailored suit, immaculate despite the chaos around him. 2 guards flanked him, weapons drawn, and aimed at Elena. "Ah," Kozlov said, gesturing for her to enter. "The ghost herself. Please sit." "I'll stand." "As you wish." He took a sip of whiskey, studying her with obvious interest. "You know I've followed your career with great admiration. Phoenix Rising was one of the most effective covert units in American history. Such a shame it was destroyed. By you. By necessity." Kozlov set down his glass. "Tell me, Miss Reyes, what do you think Phoenix Rising was actually doing in Syria? Hunting you, disrupting your operations." "Hunting me, yes. But on whose authority, who signed off on a covert operation targeting an arms dealer with connections to half the intelligence agencies in the world?" Elena didn't answer. Kozlov smiled. "You don't know. Of course you don't. Operators are never told the full picture. They're given targets, objectives, parameters. They follow orders and trust that someone above them understands the larger game. Get to the point." "The point, Miss Reyes, is that Phoenix Rising wasn't hunting me because I was selling weapons. Phoenix Rising was hunting me because I had evidence of something far more dangerous. Evidence that certain powerful people wanted buried." "What evidence?" Kozlov reached into his desk and pulled out a USB drive. "This contains documentation of a program called Blackthorn, an off-the-books operation run by elements within your own intelligence community. Assassinations regime changes false flag attacks, all designed to destabilize regions and create demand for the weapons I sold." Elena stared at the drive. "You're saying American intelligence was working with you?" "Not with me. Through me. I was a middleman, a cutout, someone who could be disavowed if anything went wrong. And when Phoenix Rising got too close to the truth, when your team started finding connections that led back to Washington instead of Moscow." He spread his hands. "Well, suddenly an abort order became necessary." "You're lying." "Am I?" Kozlov slid the drive across the desk. "This contains names, dates, bank transfers, communications. Everything you need to prove what I'm telling you. Take it, verify it, and then ask yourself who really killed your team." Elena's mind reeled. If Kozlov was telling the truth, if Phoenix Rising had been destroyed not by an enemy, but by their own side, then everything she believed was wrong. The target of her revenge, the focus of 4 years of hunting, all of it built on a lie. But if he was lying, if this was just another manipulation designed to save his life, then she was wasting time she didn't have. "Why tell me this?" she demanded. "Why not just let your guards kill me?" "Because I'm dying," Kozlov said simply. "Cancer. 6 months, maybe less. And I've grown tired of the game." He picked up his whiskey again. "I've spent 40 years playing powerful people against each other, accumulating leverage, staying alive through information instead of force. But in the end, none of it matters. I'm going to die alone on this boat, surrounded by people who only tolerate me because I pay them." His eyes met hers. You, Miss Reyes, are the only person who has ever come after me for reasons that weren't about money or power. You came for justice, for vengeance, for something real." A sad smile crossed his face. "I find that admirable. Almost noble." "I don't want your admiration." "I know. You want my death." He set down the glass and folded his hands. "I won't stop you. If that's what you need, if killing me brings you peace, then do it. But take the drive first. Learn the truth, and then burn the people who actually destroyed your team." Elena stood frozen. The pistol felt heavy in her hand. Kozlov watched her with those pale blue eyes. Waiting. Patient. "How do I know this isn't a trap? You don't. But ask yourself, what do I gain by lying I'm dying? My network is exposed. Your Commander Cole is already transmitting the evidence to JSOC. Within hours, everyone I've ever worked with will be under investigation or running for their lives. I have nothing left to protect." He was right. Elena knew he was right. The logic was sound, the situation clear. And yet... "Rodriguez," she said. "Chen, Walsh, they died because of you. They died because someone decided the truth was too dangerous. I was simply the convenient villain, the foreign arms dealer who could be blamed without anyone asking uncomfortable questions. That doesn't absolve you. No, it doesn't. I've done terrible things, Miss Reyes. Sold weapons that killed thousands. Profited from wars that destroyed nations. I'm not asking for forgiveness." He leaned forward. "I'm asking you to be smarter than the people who manipulated you. To see the full picture instead of just the frame they showed you." Elena's finger tightened on the trigger. Kozlov didn't flinch, didn't blink, just waited. "If you're wrong," she said slowly, "if this drive contains nothing but propaganda designed to protect you, then you'll know. And you can find me again. Kill me properly. I won't run. You won't be able to. I destroyed your engines." A genuine laugh escaped Kozlov's lips. Yes, you did. Impressive work, by the way. Yuri always said you were the most dangerous of your team. Now I understand why." Elena made her decision. She lowered the pistol, stepped forward, and took the drive. "If this is a trick, it's not. Then I'll be back, not to kill you, to make sure you spend whatever time you have left in a cell." Kozlov nodded. "Fair enough." Elena turned and walked toward the door. The guards tracked her with their weapons, but didn't fire. "Miss Reyes." She paused, but didn't turn. "When you find the truth, when you see the names on that drive, remember that I warned you. Some doors once opened can never be closed." Elena walked out of the cabin without looking back. The swim to shore took longer than she expected. The current had shifted, pulling her south, and by the time she reached the beach, her muscles were screaming with exhaustion. She collapsed on the sand, gasping for air, the USB drive clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Her phone buzzed. A message from Cole. JSOC received everything. Arrests beginning. Where are you? Elena typed her response with trembling fingers. Safe. Have new intel. Need to verify before sharing. Cole's reply came immediately. What new intel? Elena stared at the screen. How could she explain what Kozlov had told her? How could she admit that everything she believed might be wrong? She typed, later, stay safe. Then she pulled herself to her feet and started walking. The truth was waiting, and she was terrified of what she might find. The files opened at 0347, the same hour Elena had received the warning that changed everything. She sat in a motel room 30 miles from Camp Pendleton laptop screen glowing in the darkness, Kozlov's USB drive plugged into a secure port. Her hands trembled as the documents loaded. 4 years of certainty, 4 years of focus, 4 years of knowing exactly who to blame, all of it balanced on the edge of a knife. The first file was a communication log. Encrypted messages between Kozlov and someone using the codename Architect. Elena scanned the dates. April 2020. The month Phoenix Rising died. Architect Phoenix team closing on your position. Abort order ready for execution. Confirm payment received. Kozlov. Confirmed. But I want assurances. If this traces back to me, Architect, it won't. Dawson is the cutout. He takes the fall if anything surfaces. You remain protected. Kozlov. And Phoenix Rising Architect will be eliminated. All operators, no survivors. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Kozlov hadn't been lying. Someone else had orchestrated the abort. Someone with enough power to move pieces on both sides of the board. She opened the second file. Bank transfers. Millions of dollars flowing through shell companies, routing through Switzerland, ending up in accounts linked to defense contractors, intelligence officials, political operatives. Names she recognized. Names that made her stomach turn. The third file was the worst. A list of Phoenix Rising operators, their photos, their service records, their psychological profiles, notes in the margins written in cold, bureaucratic language. Rodriguez Miguel. Threat assessment high. Recommendation eliminate. Chen David. Threat assessment high. Recommendation eliminate. Walsh Sarah. Threat assessment high. Recommendation eliminate. Reyes Elena. Threat assessment extreme. Recommendation priority elimination. They had known, before the mission, before Syria, before any of it, someone had marked her team for death. Elena closed the laptop. Her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't type anymore. The room felt like it was spinning reality, fracturing around her like glass. 4 years. She had spent 4 years hunting the wrong enemy. Kozlov was guilty of 1,000 crimes, but he wasn't the architect of Phoenix Rising's destruction. He was a contractor, a tool. The same thing Dawson had been. The real enemy was inside the system, inside her own government. Her phone rang. Cole's number. She answered but couldn't speak. Elena, are you there? I'm here. Her voice sounded strange, hollow. Where are you? JSOC is going crazy. The arrests are happening, but there's pushback. Someone high up is trying to shut everything down. I know who. Silence on the other end. What do you mean you know who? Elena opened the laptop again, scrolled to the communication logs, found the name that had been carefully hidden behind layers of encryption and misdirection. The code name is Architect. Real name is General Marcus Webb. Cole's breath caught. Webb, the deputy director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. The same. Elena, that's impossible. Webb is untouchable. He's been in charge of counter-terrorism operations for 15 years. He's a hero. He's a traitor. Elena's voice hardened. He orchestrated the Phoenix Rising abort. He ordered my team killed. And he's been protecting Kozlov's network ever since because Kozlov has evidence that could destroy him. How do you know this? Because Kozlov gave me the files, everything. Names, dates, money trails. Webb has been running a shadow operation for decades, Blackthorn. Assassinations, regime changes, false flag attacks. All of it designed to destabilize regions and create demand for weapons that his friends sold. Cole was silent for a long moment. Then, if this is true, it's true. If this is true, then we're not just taking down a network. We're taking down a piece of the government itself. Yes. Elena, this could start a war. Inside the intelligence community, inside the military. People will die. People already died. Rodriguez, Chen, Walsh. They died because they got too close to the truth, and Webb made sure no one would ever find out. She stood up, pacing the small room. I'm not going to let him get away with it. I don't care how powerful he is. I don't care who protects him. He's going to answer for what he did. How you can't just walk into the Pentagon and arrest the deputy director of DIA. Elena smiled grimly. I'm not going to arrest him. I'm going to expose him. Everything. All of it. To everyone. What do you mean? I mean I'm going to burn his world down. She hung up before Cole could respond. The next 72 hours were a blur of movement and preparation. Elena contacted every journalist she trusted, a short list carefully cultivated over years of operating in shadows. She sent them encrypted packages containing the Blackthorn files, the communication logs, the financial records, everything except the names of active operators who might be endangered. Then she contacted her handler at JSOC. You're insane, the handler said when Elena explained her plan. Webb has resources you can't imagine. He'll have you killed before the first story publishes. Then I'd better move fast. We can't protect you, not from this. I don't need protection. I need backup. Someone to verify the evidence independently. Someone whose word will carry weight when the accusations start flying. A long pause. What do you have in mind? General Patricia Calloway. She's clean. I've checked. And she hates Webb almost as much as I do. Calloway is at JSOC headquarters. Getting to her means walking into the most secure facility in the country. I know. While every intelligence agency in the world is looking for you. I know. And you think you can pull this off? Elena looked at the challenge coin in her hand. The phoenix wings spread, rising from flames. I think I don't have a choice. The flight to Virginia took 4 hours. Elena traveled under a false identity, one of several she had maintained since going underground 4 years ago. She kept her head down, her movements unremarkable, just another tired traveler in an airport full of tired travelers. But her mind was racing. Webb would know she was coming. He had eyes everywhere, surveillance systems, informants, people who owed him favors. The moment she surfaced near JSOC headquarters, he would send people to stop her. She needed to be faster, smarter, more ruthless. The rental car was waiting at the airport. Elena drove through the night, avoiding main highways, taking back roads that wouldn't show up on traffic cameras. She arrived at the outskirts of the base at 0300, parked in a wooded area half a mile from the perimeter fence. Then she waited. At 0530, her phone buzzed. A message from Cole. Calloway briefed. She's expecting you. Side entrance, 0600, code word Phoenix. Elena read the message twice. Then she destroyed the phone. The walk to the perimeter took 15 minutes. Elena moved through the woods with the ease of someone who had spent years operating in hostile territory. Every footstep calculated, every shadow evaluated, every sound catalogued and analyzed. She reached the side entrance at 0558. A single guard stood at the post, young alert hand resting on his weapon. Halt. This is a restricted area. Elena stopped, raised her hands slowly. Phoenix, she said. The guard's expression flickered. He spoke into his radio. Contact at side entrance. Code word confirmed. A pause. Then the gate opened. General Calloway is waiting for you. Follow the blue line. Elena walked through. The interior of JSOC headquarters was surprisingly mundane corridors, offices, conference rooms. The same bureaucratic architecture that defined military installations everywhere. But Elena knew better. Behind these ordinary walls, decisions were made that shaped the fate of nations. And somewhere in this building, Marcus Webb was planning her death. Calloway's office was on the 3rd floor. Elena found it without difficulty. The blue line on the floor led directly to a door marked Commanding General. She knocked. Enter. General Patricia Calloway sat behind a desk covered in files and reports. She was 62 years old, gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, eyes that had seen 3 combat deployments and countless intelligence operations. She looked up as Elena entered, and something shifted in her expression. "Staff Sergeant Reyes, or should I say Phoenix Rising 7. "Elena is fine, ma'am." Calloway gestured to a chair. "Sit. We have a lot to discuss, and very little time." Elena sat. "Commander Cole briefed me on what you found," Calloway said. "I've spent the last 6 hours verifying what I could. The financial records check out. The communication logs are authentic. And Blackthorn—" She shook her head. "I always suspected something like this existed. I just never had proof. Now you do. Now I do." Calloway leaned forward. "The question is, what do we do with it? We expose Webb. We burn his network. We make sure everyone knows what he did. And start a civil war inside the intelligence community. Better than letting him win." Calloway studied her for a long moment. "You know he'll fight back. He has allies everywhere, people who benefit from the status quo, people who can't afford to let the truth come out." "I know. And you're willing to risk your life, everything, to bring him down." Elena met her eyes. 3 of my friends died because of him. They trusted the system. They followed orders. And the system betrayed them. She pulled out the challenge coin, set it on Calloway's desk. "This was Rodriguez's. He gave it to me the night before we deployed. Told me it would bring me luck." She picked up the coin, turned it over in her fingers. "It didn't bring him luck. He died 50 meters from the extraction point, bled out in my arms while helicopters that should have saved him flew in the opposite direction." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've spent 4 years trying to make that mean something, trying to find justice in a world that doesn't care about justice. And now I know who's responsible. I know his name. I know where he lives. I know everything." She set the coin back down. "So yes, I'm willing to risk everything. Because if I don't, then Rodriguez died for nothing. Chen died for nothing. Walsh died for nothing. And I can't live with that." Calloway was silent for a long moment. Then she picked up the coin, examined it, and handed it back. "Phoenix Rising. I remember when that unit was created. The best of the best. Operators who could go anywhere, do anything, disappear without a trace." She smiled sadly. "We never imagined they would be destroyed by their own side. We can still make it right." "Yes." Calloway stood. "We can." She walked to her desk, picked up a secure phone, and dialed a number. "This is General Calloway. Authorization code 7729 Delta. I need an emergency session of the National Security Council. Priority Alpha. Subject Blackthorn." A pause. "Yes, I'm aware of the implications. Do it anyway." She hung up. In 3 hours, every major intelligence agency head will be in that room, along with the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, and representatives from the Congressional Oversight Committees. And Webb, he'll be there too. He has to be. Anything else would raise suspicions. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or fear. Or both. "What do you need from me?" "Your testimony. Everything you know, everything you've seen, everything you've done. No filters, no omissions, no protection. They'll try to discredit me. Call me a rogue operator, a traitor. Let them try. I'll have your service record projected on every screen in that room, every commendation, every successful mission, every life you saved." Calloway's eyes hardened. "By the time I'm done, Marcus Webb won't be able to hide behind anything." 3 hours later, Elena stood outside the National Security Council chamber. She was wearing a borrowed uniform. Her own had been destroyed weeks ago, and her challenge coin was in her pocket. Through the heavy doors, she could hear voices, the murmur of powerful people discussing things they didn't fully understand. Cole appeared beside her. "How are you feeling? Like I'm about to walk into a firing squad." "You might be." He put a hand on her shoulder. "But you're not alone. Calloway has rallied half the military leadership behind her. Whatever happens in there, Webb won't walk away clean. He might walk away alive. That's not good enough." "Elena." Cole turned her to face him. "Justice isn't about revenge. It's about truth. About making sure the people who were lost are remembered. About preventing this from ever happening again." "That sounds like something they teach at the academy." "It is. Doesn't make it wrong." The doors opened. An aide appeared. "Staff Sergeant Reyes, they're ready for you." Elena took a breath. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Then she walked through the doors. The chamber was smaller than she expected. 24 people sat around an oval table, generals, admirals, civilian officials, intelligence chiefs. At the far end, Marcus Webb sat with perfect composure, his silver hair immaculate, his eyes cold and calculating. When he saw Elena, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. Calloway stood at the head of the table. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for convening on such short notice. What you are about to hear will be difficult. It will challenge everything you believe about our intelligence apparatus and the people who lead it. But I ask you to listen with open minds and judge based on evidence, not assumption." She gestured to Elena. "This is Staff Sergeant Elena Reyes, formerly of Phoenix Rising Intelligence Cell. 4 years ago, she was declared killed in action during an operation in Syria. Today, she's going to tell you what really happened and why 3 of her teammates died." Elena stepped forward. Every eye in the room was on her. She could feel the weight of their judgment, their skepticism, their fear. She looked directly at Webb. In April 2020, Phoenix Rising was 48 hours from capturing Viktor Kozlov, an arms dealer responsible for supplying weapons to terrorist organizations across 4 continents. We had his location. We had a plan. We were going to end him. She paused. And then the abort order came. Webb's expression didn't change. The official explanation was intelligence compromise. Someone had leaked our position. The operation was too dangerous to continue, but that was a lie. She pulled out the USB drive. This drive contains communications between Viktor Kozlov and someone using the codename Architect. It shows that the abort order wasn't about safety, it was about protection. Kozlov had evidence of a program called Blackthorn, an off-the-books operation involving assassinations, regime changes, and false flag attacks. Someone wanted that evidence buried, and they were willing to kill my entire team to do it. Murmurs around the table. The communications identify Architect as a senior official in the Defense Intelligence Agency. Elena's voice hardened. "Someone sitting in this room right now." All eyes turned to Webb. He smiled. Calm. Controlled. "This is absurd," he said. "I've never heard of Blackthorn. I've never communicated with Viktor Kozlov, and I certainly didn't order the deaths of American operators." "The encryption on these files is military grade," Elena replied. "The same encryption used by DIA for sensitive communications. The access codes required to send them are assigned to exactly one person." She pointed at Webb. "You." Webb's smile faltered. Just slightly. "This is a fabrication, a forgery created by a rogue operator with a grudge." "Then explain the bank transfers." Elena pulled up another file. $4 million routed through Swiss accounts ending up in a trust fund registered to your daughter's name. Transferred 2 days after the Phoenix Rising abort. Circumstantial. Explain the kill list. Another file. My team's names, our photos, our psychological profiles, with your handwritten notes in the margins recommending our elimination. Webb's composure cracked. "This is... explain the bodies." Elena's voice rose. "Rodriguez Chen Walsh, 3 operators who trusted you, who followed your orders, who died because you sold them to protect yourself. The room was silent. Webb looked around the table searching for allies, but the faces that looked back at him were cold, uncertain, afraid. General Calloway. His voice was strained now. Surely you don't believe this fantasy. Staff Sergeant Reyes has been underground for 4 years. She could have fabricated any of this. Calloway's expression was granite. I've had independent analysts verify every file on that drive. The encryption is authentic. The metadata is authentic. The handwriting analysis on the kill list confirms it's yours. She leaned forward. Marcus, I've known you for 30 years. I wanted to believe this was wrong, but it's not. Webb stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. I'm the Deputy Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. I have served this country for 40 years, and I will not be accused by some, sit down. The voice came from the Secretary of Defense. A man who had been silent throughout the proceedings. A man who now looked at Webb with something approaching disgust. Sit down, Marcus. You're not leaving this room until we're finished. Webb hesitated. Then slowly he sat. Elena continued. Blackthorn wasn't just about protecting Kozlov. It was about profit. Every destabilized region created demand for weapons. Every regime change created opportunities for the companies Webb was connected to. He wasn't serving his country, he was serving himself. She walked around the table, approaching Webb directly. You killed my friends for money. You destroyed everything I believed in, and you thought you got away with it. She stopped in front of him. You were wrong. Webb's face twisted. The mask of composure finally shattered. You think this changes anything? He hissed. I have friends in every agency, every branch, every corner of this government. Even if you destroy me, the system remains. Blackthorn was never just me. It's embedded in everything. You can't burn it down without burning down the whole country. Then I'll burn it down. Elena's voice was ice. And I'll build something better from the ashes. The vote was unanimous. Webb was stripped of his rank, his clearance, his authority. Military police escorted him from the chamber in handcuffs, his protests echoing down the hallway until they faded to nothing. Elena stood at the window watching the sun rise over the Capitol. Calloway joined her. It's not over, the general said quietly. Webb was right about one thing: the system that created him is still intact. There will be investigations, trials, more revelations. This will take years to fully unravel. I know. What will you do now? Elena pulled out her challenge coin, looked at the phoenix rising from flames. Rodriguez Chen Walsh, they believed in something. They believed that what we did mattered, that the sacrifices we made protected people who would never know our names. She closed her fist around the coin. I'm going to honor that belief. I'm going to keep fighting, not for revenge anymore, for justice, for the people who can't fight for themselves. Calloway nodded slowly. JSOC could use someone like you, someone who understands how the shadows work, someone who isn't afraid to walk into them. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a purpose. Elena thought about it. 4 years of running, 4 years of hiding, 4 years of carrying a burden that never got lighter. Maybe it was time to stop running. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. There are other enemies out there, other networks, other people who need to be stopped. Calloway smiled slightly. And from what I've seen, you're very good at stopping them. 3 months later, Elena stood in Arlington National Cemetery. 3 new headstones had been placed in a quiet corner, markers for operators whose names had finally been cleared, whose service had finally been acknowledged. Rodriguez Miguel, Phoenix Rising, Hero, Chen David, Phoenix Rising, Hero, Walsh Sarah, Phoenix Rising. Hero. Elena knelt in front of Rodriguez's grave and placed something on the grass. His challenge coin. The one he had given her the night before their final mission. "I did it," she whispered. "It took 4 years, but I did it. Webb is going to prison. The network is destroyed, and everyone knows what really happened." She touched the headstone. "I'm not done yet. There are others out there, other people who need to answer for what they've done. But I wanted you to know that it meant something. All of it. The sacrifice, the pain, the years of wondering if anyone would ever know the truth." She stood. "Rest now. You've earned it." She walked away from the graves toward the parking lot where Cole was waiting. "How do you feel?" he asked. Elena looked back at the headstones. The morning sun was warm on her face, and for the first time in 4 years, the weight on her shoulders felt manageable. "Like I can finally breathe." Cole nodded. "Calloway called. She has a new assignment. Something in Eastern Europe. A network that's been trafficking weapons to groups that shouldn't have them." "When do I leave?" 72 hours. Elena smiled. It was a real smile, something she hadn't felt in so long she had forgotten what it was like. "Then I'd better start packing." They walked toward the car together. The sun was rising higher, burning away the morning mist, illuminating a world that was slightly better than it had been the day before. Elena Reyes had been declared dead 4 years ago. She had risen from those ashes, survived impossible odds, and brought down an enemy more powerful than anyone thought possible. They had called her a paper pusher, a desk jockey, a woman who didn't belong. They had told her to give up, to run, to accept that justice was impossible. They had underestimated her. And now finally, irrevocably, permanently, they knew better. Because Elena Reyes was Phoenix Rising. And phoenixes don't stay dead.